49 of the national emergency. Are you still out there? I miss you. I really do. You know who I miss tonight? Workers. The laborers. I'm a worker. People who get things done, people who teach, people who heal, all of us. And for me, before this, I was responsible for bringing together big teams of people, all kinds of people, craft service, chefs, camera people, wardrobe assistants, the workers, all of us working together to get something done. And I miss it. And I miss you guys. And I'm glad you're here tonight because we have an amazing show. We've got workers, we've got musicians, and we're going to celebrate a guy. I mean, Robert Osborne worked. That's what you could say about him. And he brought a lot of joy to a lot of people. So, as you know, we've been doing a lot of man in the street work. It's kind of a new thing for us. And we have a dispatch that was filed yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and play it. I think it has something to do with the weather.
Weather. Yeah, so weather. Yes. We're here. More wind, less people. Now back to you. Let's go. Go back to you.
Yeah, so like I said, that was filed yesterday. Had something to do with the weather. Weather was really crazy here yesterday. Right now, tonight, I've got Sister Christian and Brother Lawerence coming to you. They started the Producers Happy Hour podcast just before this thing hit. And so then they instantly pivoted to create a podcast that's been helpful for many, many people. So let me Skype them on right now. I believe at the push of a button. Okay, and now there we are.
Hello.
Welcome, Sister Christian, Brother Lawerence. Thank you guys for taking a minute out of your very busy day to come and join us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I'll tell you, I'm going to think twice the next time I bring, because tonight, ultimately, we have 3 producers. And right before the show, just as long I'm getting my lines and stuff, everybody's hitting the Skype. Everybody's calling.
We always want to be on time.
Yes. And see the frame that we're giving you, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's all beautiful. Okay. All right. Let me get myself out of the picture, so it's just going to be the two of you. Boom. There we go. And now tell everybody, what was the origin of the podcast?
I'm a producer, but in addition to being a producer, I also do a lot of voiceover work. So I have a great little home studio, and that really inspired me to do a podcast. I've wanted to do one for a while, and I wanted to do one that was focused on the film and event production industry, but something different than what's already out there. So I thought, what do producers do best? Go to drinks, go to happy hour, and talk about, this industry we love. And at that time, I was spending a lot of time working in New York. And when I'm there, who do I hang out with? Who do I hang out in dive bars with? Sister Christian. And our interaction is so natural and so fun, and we have a great time talking about this industry that we love so much. So I thought, who better to chat and have drinks with than Sister Christian? So I called her.
Right.
Simple
and
as
then
that.
when he asked me, I was like, drinks? talking.
Yeah.
Well, yes. And then also too, like, I feel it's important as producers we keep growing because the industry keeps changing. Why would we think that, once we've learned our position, we should not change or grow or learn? So it's a quest for that.
Absolutely. And I see, Sister Christian, you've got your cocktail with you.
Yes.
Very nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually having champagne, so cheers.
Oh, a little champagne. Nice.
Mhm.
Cheers. 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 So you guys are going to be talking about, production as we knew it, and then the pandemic hits. So how do you decide to pivot, and what do you pivot to?
Well, I was on a job in California when all of this went down, and I believe it was St. Patrick's Day when I flew home, and it was very nervous time because traveling, especially internationally, was being shut down. And so I was trying to get home, and during that process, Lawerence texted me and said, "We got to get on daily." And I was like, "Yes. What else are we doing? We're both nervous about the industry and what's happening. We're freelance. Everybody at that point had jobs canceled, so we did not know what was going on. So in order to stay close to our community, we went daily."
Yeah. We started out just trying to figure out who was working and where are the jobs and what was happening. So it kind of became a little time capsule of this chain of events to all of a sudden becoming clear that, this is a long-term thing.
Okay, so let me roll this sizzle, because I think what you did beautifully in this little compilation is you went from the very first moment, you can almost feel the pivot, and then you hear what people are asking you for now, in the now. So let me roll this.
Is this really how we're going to start the podcast? Yay!
Our first episode.
To our first episode. Hello, this is Lawerence Lewis.
And this is Sister Christian. Things have changed very quickly.
We are now going to take this opportunity to reach far and wide into our filmmaking community.
We want to hear your stories. We need to hear your story.
This is Luke. I'm a producer in San Francisco. I really love what you're doing with the Producer's Happy Hour. On set, it was very apparent that this was everyone's last job.
Almost every job had either canceled or postponed for 2 months, for March and April. Of course, our problem is the landlords aren't giving what they're offering us is bunkus.
Remembering that last week, we were all still trying to figure out how we would be filming this week. And this week on Monday, we all realized it's gone.
It's gone.
Nobody's filming right now. We should not be gathering in groups of more than 10.
Hi, production friends and family. It's Susan Lynn's production designer. I am trying to stay in complete faith and positive during this time.
We were about to start shooting our first short film when a few days before one of the actors was quarantined.
Times like this will maybe install the next level of authenticity and sincere awareness. I think consumers will walk away from this and really understand who was there to actually help.
How do employers allow for somebody to say, hey, I'm sick, I really can't come in? Do you say as an employer, I'm going to pay you out, so that you are making every effort to help people not feel horrible about calling in sick?
My name is Jonathan Bentley. I'm a Dallas cameraman. I'm not working right now. No, I don't have any work lined up, but we got a beautiful home. I think we can survive.
We're chatting with the executive director of the Producers Health Benefits Plan, Sean Cooley.
So we're waiving everything that you would be spending on a recurring monthly basis for the next 3 months. We're waiving.
That's amazing.
That's huge.
What does humanity actually need? Let's just reevaluate everything.
You said I can't give you what I normally would. I also think I don't want to give you what I normally would.
Thank you.
I mean, it's hard to admit in our business. You can't say no.
We can say no now. We have been empowered to say no.
And being producers, we will adapt. The people who will not do well are the people who are not going to morph to the change.
The modern story is separation, domination, and control. And that we're moving to a new story. We're in a transition. Be okay with that.
We have a very strong opportunity to bring hope, to just remind ourselves that everything will be okay.
It's like the world hit the pause button and is forcing us all to slow down, stop polluting, stop consuming, and focus on what it means to be human. And
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's like a slow wave washing over.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow. Yeah, wow. That brought us right up to the moment. So we heard a lot of voices there. What were some of the most immediate needs right away? Once you pivoted, what did people need?
Well, right away we were getting calls about cancellation fees. What do we do there? Insurance claims, unemployment, workman's comp. I mean, you name it, people were asking about it. We also were concerned too, like, if I wasn't home, I didn't run out and buy a bunch of toilet paper. So we were also trying to figure out how to get our own supplies and such and talk about that too. So we just kind of began gathering the information that people would need in order to claim unemployment and such, and put it on our website.
Yeah, we created a little page called Take Action, and we put a bunch of petitions there, places where people could get some relief or volunteer or donate if they had the means to do so, just to do what we could, collect some information for everybody, because it was a very confusing time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's still a little bit confusing because, every move forward we make, some forces add a layer of confusion to that. So sometimes it's hard to know which direction to point.
It's confusing in a new way right now. Now the confusion is, how do we come back? How do we start filming again? And what does that look like? And there's a lot of opinions and a lot of bigger safety concerns that we as producers have to think about. That makes it a little scary.
Yeah, because the producers in tandem with the first AD are ultimately the buck stops here on safety for everybody on set.
Yeah. 100%, and we have to own that and take it very seriously. So it's we're rewriting the rule book now as to what it looks like, what a commercial production set or even a narrative TV or film set looks like.
Yeah. So one last question. I thank you. I know you guys are working long hours to get the podcast up, and then also fielding calls about work and working back up the chain, letting people know what can and can't be done. So what do you see, like top line, just a couple of changes? What's different tomorrow in a production, in a crew, on set than yesterday?
Aside from the, safety protocols and the risk people will feel coming back to set and needing to address that, we think that the amount of time that it used to take for a production to happen will be longer now, and the amount of, bang for the buck that the client used to get for, say, their money, they're going to get a little less for that, because unfortunately things are going to take longer, or we're going to have lesser crew.
Yeah, and outside of that, it's all to be discovered, because, like you said, it changes every day. How the disease communicates between people non-symptomatically, that still is a big unknown. So we're holding a bunch of crew safety roundtables, which we'd like to invite any of your listeners to join us, so we can talk to the crew, see what they need, what they feel like they need to have happen on set to make sure they feel safe coming back to work. I think it's important that the producers, hear from the crew.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to be a part of that. So thank you,
Please.
Sister Christian. Thank you, Brother Lawerence. This has been incredibly insightful, and for me at least, calming. It's good to know that people are doing this work, because what we know in our hearts is we can't go back to work unless this work is done first.
Absolutely. 100%.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you hear about any ding-dang jobs, please, Sister Christian, don't lose my number.
Done.
All right.
We got you on Skype now.
All right. I love you guys very much. Please be safe.
You too. Thank you.
You too.
Right. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao.
Guys.
Important stuff. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to now celebrate a guy who was in everybody's living room before there was even Skype. Robert Osborne was the head of, the face of, the head of, the heart of, the soul of Turner Classic Movies for 20-something years, ever since its beginning. And the person I'm going to bring on right now, many of you know him as the Groover. That's how I was first introduced to this gentleman. But most of you know him as Sean Cameron. Let me do the dial-in here. I like that idea of the happy hour podcast. Sean's another producer. He was ringing me 2 minutes right before the camera went on. These producers, what do they think?
Hey,
what
buddy.
Do they think? There you are, sir. How are you,
got
my
me
friend?
okay?
Yeah, can you center up? Oh, wait, no, I know. No, don't you move, sir. Do not.
This is cinematic framing.
There we are, 16 by 9. I forgot you put that in your rider. I have the documentation right here. So, impressive title alert. When you were with TCM, you were vice president of studio production.
I was, yes.
Now, reeling way back, 20-something years, how did it all begin?
It began with my wife turning to me one day and saying, "You need to get a job." So I looked around the Atlanta area and decided that since acting wasn't working out for me, TV production might be a good way to go. And at the time, the only game in town was Turner Broadcasting. So I took the first entry-level job I could get at Turner, knowing that once I had my foot in the door, I could, maneuver around somewhere else. So the first job I had at Turner wasn't even a TV gig. It was basically a web blog, and this was Internet 0.5. And it folded very quickly, and they laid me off. But literally 3 days later, a job opened up on the production crew for Robert's intros, and I went across the street and did an interview and got a job as the production assistant. So I started sweeping floors.
Yeah. I'm still sweeping floors. That's
Yeah.
See, that's the difference between us. And so and so you're working with Robert, and you started first as a PA.
Yeah, so I started as a PA. I was feeling a little underutilized, so I went to the head writer at the time, said, "Hey, can I write a script or two for you?" And he gave me a chance, and I took a shine to it. Robert liked the work I was doing, and that just led to a progression of title changes and moving up the chain until I was a senior writer, I was the assistant director, the director, and then took over the department when my predecessor left. So.
Wow, fantastic. And so back in those days, when you guys, for everybody I'm sure knows who Robert Osborne is and what he did, the intros and the outros for each of the movies on TCM. Yep. How many titles did you guys attack in a day?
A day, we would do about 32 films a day, wraps for both ends, so 64 pieces. And at that time, we shot 3 days a week, every other week. So we always had a batch of scripts in some level of production. But then about 5 or 6 years into it, we shifted to a once-a-month workflow that was a lot more manageable and allowed him a little downtime so that we could take care of him a bit more. And then we brought in other hosts, and that lightened his load even more. So it was really about preserving his energy so that he would be there for those important primetime films.
And he had a whole entire career before that. He was out in Hollywood.
God, yeah, he was an actor. Was part of a repertoire of actors that Lucille Ball put together at Desilu Studios, then wrote a book and parlayed that into working in PR. Then eventually he was hired by the Hollywood Reporter, and he wrote a column for them for probably 20, 30 years as well. And that's how he ended up in New York. And the entire time he was meeting these stars and starlets from the films that he loved so much, and they were so impressed that he knew all of this history off the tip of his tongue, because at the time, film nostalgia was not really a thing, classic film nostalgia. People watched the films on TV, but nobody really appreciated them the way they do now. So, so he was able to befriend a lot of these people. And that's part of what made Robert Osborne when he got the job at TCM, I think.
Yeah, and the beauty of it was he knew the people, he knew the stories, but more importantly, he knew which stories to tell.
Yes. He didn't like to gossip much. Every once in a while, he'd get a little twinkle in his eye and share a tale that he probably shouldn't have. But for the most part, he wanted people to appreciate the hard work that went into these films. When they say it was a factory, it's the truth. These people worked very hard, and they would wrap a film and start another one the following Monday. And so he really valued the work that they did and didn't want to disrespect them by going into the gutter with some of the stories.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mention it like that, because in my life, I came along at the very tail end of Robert's huge career, and he was one of the hardest working, most dedicated people. If ever a person had earned the right to rest on their laurels and let the machine take care of them, it was Robert, because of the great people he had surrounding him and the great machine that he had put into motion. And yet he showed up every day, and even when you could tell that he wasn't feeling, he was just a real important guy to a lot of people.
It meant a lot to him, and it came to him late in life, and it was his dream job, and he valued it greatly. And part of the reason why is because he knew how important it was to people at home. He would get stopped regularly and hear stories about how TCM helped somebody, recover from an illness, or how they bonded with their grandparents. And he knew the emotional connection people had with the channel. And it was all about respect for the audience. He respected the people who made the films, and he respected the people at home who were watching the films. And so he valued every opportunity he got to speak to people at home and tell them stories about these movies.
Well, we have this fantastic, it's kind of a slideshow with some beautiful music from, one of the guys who worked on the art department for many, many years, Steve Chismadia, Chiz, we called him. Let me roll that, and then I want to come back and hear your favorite story about you and Robert.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
Goodbye, movie man. Here's looking at you, kid. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for all you did to keep the stars alive, to go behind the scenes, to share the movie's magic on the TV screen. Goodbye, movie man. You made a cold day warmer and a dark day bright. The world seemed better somehow, knowing you'd be there day or night. With that golden voice and that Hollywood smile, we could tune you in and tune out real life for a while. Goodbye, movie man. Take your place with the stars, with the brightest and the best. You kept them all shining, now shine on with the rest. You shared your passion, one movie at a time. Thanks for being here. I'm feeling like a friend of mine. 1 in a million. It's hard to see you go. I still tune in every night. If the truth be told, hoping to find you right where you belong. If this were a movie, I wouldn't have to sing this song. Goodbye, movie man. Goodbye, movie man.
Beautiful, beautiful memorial of a beautiful man, for sure.
Yeah, that was nice. It was nice to add that to the memorial service we did for him in New York. So,
and while we're talking about him and how he would celebrate, what was his number one thing?
Well, when it was coming to the end, he was very clear that he didn't want any sad songs or tears shed. He wanted people to celebrate life. So he had a list of about 7 movie clips he wanted shown, and he just wanted those shown, and everybody to be handed some vanilla Haagen-Dazs ice cream and just have an ice cream party.
Who remembers a little vanilla Haagen? Thank you, engineer. My engineer is here. Sometimes she moonlights in the healthcare industry, but she was here today.
You would be very happy that you're doing that.
Well, this is for him then.
Yes, everybody should honor him on his birthday with the ice cream of their choice. Because I'm sorry, vanilla Haagen-Dazs is a little boring.
Oh, it's really good.
Give me some salted caramel for this, please.
Oh, I hear you. So, what was your favorite story? You guys went everywhere. You went.
Yeah, we did a lot of traveling together. We had a lot of fun. And the thing about Robert is it was his love of these movies was authentic, and he would get just as excited about hearing about learning that somebody was getting the opportunity to see a film for the first time. And when I had children, he was very excited that I was going to get to expose them to some of these films. So one day he called me and he said, "Sean, there's a movie coming up that we've never shown on TCM before. You have to show it to the girls. It's so charming. It's so good. You're going to love it." And it was called Margie. And it was a 20th Century Fox film, which is why we didn't show it on TCM a lot. And it's a story about a high school girl set around the turn of the 20th century. So it was kind of like 20th Century Fox's version of Meet Me in St. Louis. It's a year in her life. So we sit down and watch the movie with the girls. My oldest was a middle schooler at the time. Youngest was, still probably in the 4th or 5th grade. And it was a charming film. She's got a crush on the jock. She's got a dorky next door neighbor who you just know is going to be the one she ends up with in the end. But she also has this, schoolgirl crush on her high school teacher. And the whole movie follows the course of her senior year, and you're wondering which of these two boys is she going to end up with. And then graduation rolls around, and she's comes home in her cap and gown. And a few minutes later, there's a knock on the door, and it's the high school French teacher who's come to propose marriage. Oh my God. So we're watching this movie, and I look over at my wife, and she looks back at me, and we're like, why did he want our daughters to see this movie about the high school teacher who reciprocates the crush on the senior girl? So I call him, and I gave him a little grief for it. He's like, Sean, it was a different time back then. He goes, I had an aunt who the same thing happened. It was quite the scandal, but they got married, and it lasted for generations. So
it all works out.
But he was just so happy that the girls got to see it. So
yeah.
But that was Robert. He would get very excited about people seeing movies for the first time. And so he had a list of recommendations for me to share with the girls as they grew up and became more age appropriate for some of these films.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I guess I should explain the lady screaming over my shoulder. That is Janie Withers. She was a child star, and she was part of the first show I produced, long-form show I produced for TCM, Private Screenings Child Star. And she was basically Shirley Temple's nemesis. She was the bratty kid who was always causing her problems. And she became such a big favorite with the fans for her obnoxiousness that she started getting her own B movies at the studio. And this was one of her movies. And Robert liked the idea of Jane Withers sitting over my shoulder screaming at me. So he bought this. He bought this in an auction and then arranged to have it put into my office without me knowing it as for my birthday. So, I've had that a few years now. So
that is perfect. Oh, my God. What an amazing guy. He's just, missed by so many. So happy birthday, Robert.
Yeah, happy birthday, Robert Osborne.
Yeah. It's actually Sunday.
Yes. So we had a lighting director whose birthday was May 2nd. Robert's is May 3rd, and mine is May 4th. So it was always a party, for his May shoot.
Happy birthday to you, young man.
That's right.
All right, Mr. Cameroon, the groover. Thank you for taking just a moment.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and to, I guess, reminisce about the really, really, really good old days.
Yeah, for sure. Those were some of my favorite days. I really loved working with them, and very proud of the work we did together. Very proud of the channel now. And I think he, more than anything right now, as much as he wouldn't like what's going on, I think he would have found it very satisfying that people are coming together and doing movie watch parties using technology so that they can watch movies together. So I think he would take comfort in knowing that TCM is still a balm for people during times like this. So
and I
keep watching it.
Yeah. And I shot a bunch of emails out to all our crew. So, hang in there. As we heard with the previous guests, people are talking about getting us back to work. So everybody hang in there and, keep the faith.
Yeah, we're going to come back bigger and stronger. And, this too shall pass, as they say.
Yeah. All right, Sean. Well, thank you for taking some time. And
thanks, buddy.
I love you. Give Kanye a big hug and give the kids a big high five.
Will do. Love you, man. Take care.
Tell them don't take French, too. I don't know. Maybe you want to. All right, man. We'll talk.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Great. Wonderful. You know what? Let me just... One more. It's for a good cause. Okay. These next two guys, we're going deep and we're going old. These next two gentlemen are musicians who are studying, well, they're studying many different things, but one of the things that they're studying are ancient Indian music traditions. We had a great conversation, and then they figured out how to use technology to create this video of this 10-minute piece of music that is going to blow your mind. So let's watch the interview first, and then we'll watch this song. Rohan and Mike, welcome. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, great. Excited to be here.
The music that we're about to hear is called Raga. And would you say that this is a religious song?
The music that we play is Indian classical music. And so the traditions stretch back thousands of years into the kind of early Vedic music and Hindu music in India. That music mixed with Islamic culture during the Mughal invasions, somewhere around 1,000 years ago. At that point, there was a new music style that came out called Khayal, and that's basically the music style that me and Rohan play. So there's a lot of religious influences, and that's a very, very big part of the history. In a way, it's very secular at this point. It's something that anyone, anywhere in the world can enjoy and delve into, and it's become extremely popular all over the world for that reason.
Would this be considered a classical Indian tune?
Yes. To me, this is considered, the pure classical form. It's deeply ingrained in, sort of an oral tradition that's been passed down generation by generation. Until very recently, nothing has been written down, and we don't have a similar staff notation like Western music does. What we've learned from our gurus, it's very deeply rooted in the pure classical form. With the help of Mike, this is what you would hear in a pure classical set that you would hear in a concert hall or anywhere else.
Much of this piece is improvised, right?
Correct. Most of it is improvised, actually. The way sort of the classical music takes form is you start with the raga, which is sort of the atmosphere that you're trying to create, and there's hundreds and thousands of different ragas that you can play. Within that, it's completely, the onus is on the performer to improvise to the best of their knowledge, their ability, and their creative thinking to bring out the essence of that raga. The composition is sung or played on an instrument, but anything that you hear outside of that composition itself is improvised. Upwards of 95% of the set being improvised, while 5 to 10% is a composition that you've learned in the past. The thing that has appealed me to this music is the high proportion of improvised music, letting your emotions and creative processes take over when you're performing.
So how would someone learn how to play this music?
The whole tradition of Indian music, it's always been something that's been an oral tradition, and it's been passed down from gurus to shishya, as they're called, or student or disciple. What's really amazing about this music and the way that it's able to be an improvised form is that it's not really like you're learning songs. What you're learning is a language. You're learning how to speak through your instrument in a dialect that is specific to the person you're learning from. And there are a variety of styles and schools that have been kind of developed over generations. And so when you learn from a guru, what you really have to do is you have to spend a lot of time with them. In the old days, they would live with them. You would basically become closer and closer to them and try and understand how they think. And how they think is directly related to how they create music. And so in that way, you're learning this language in a very organic, osmotic kind of way.
Wow. Rohan with 95% improvised. With the current situation, how are you two able to create this song together?
Right. Well, the wonders of technology and being able to leverage a lot of technology that we have at our disposal, there's no substitute for that interpersonal connection when you're on stage. And Mike and I have been performing for years now, and the rapport that we've developed while sitting a couple feet away from each other is that's something that you're never going to get in a pre-recorded piece. For the techies out there, in this case, I went first and recorded a short, 10-minute harmonium solo with that click track in my ears. And I, paid attention to, in a typical concert scenario, the tempo would be up and down, and we would try to increase it gradually. That being much more complicated in terms of coordinating with Mike, just sort of said, let's just keep it at one tempo until the very end where we have one speed change. Sort of drew up an outline in my head as to, where exactly I wanted Mike to come in and do his thing and work his magic. So there's multiple breaks in there that I just left and was counting the amount of measures in my head to kind of just keep track of it and send Mike that outline, and Mike kind of just took over and did his magic right after that.
Wow. It's an absolutely stunning composition, and you both are amazing playing it. Thank you for spending some time just having a little interview with us and letting us know some of the background and how all of this comes together, these days. But also, thank you for taking the time to just figure it out and then make this beautiful video.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic, guys. I was just looking at the notes going up, and Holly, yes, this is Robert's tie that I'm wearing. Of course, I would be wearing his tie. Sean told me that he had one of Robert's ties as well, but he was coming on a little bit more relaxed. Now, I also want to mention, I forgot to mention this at the top of the show, new schedule for next week. Next week, we're going Tuesday and Thursday next week. So all of May, you can expect to find us right here, 8 p.m. on Tuesday and Thursday. Now, I highly encourage you to open your mind, open your heart, and let this raga in. Mike and Rohan. That was truly remarkable. And I thank you. Those guys were working. They were working together. Workers creating stuff. Workers creating music. Workers creating educated people. Workers creating things that we need. Workers uniting and improvising and figuring it out. Because that's what we workers do. All right. Have a peaceful Friday night. Be good to yourselves this weekend. We will see you on Tuesday. And of course, anyone who's probably ever worked with me knows Tuesdays are usually Taco Tuesdays. Holly reminded me of that in the chat. So we'll be looking at a little Taco Tuesday on Tuesday. I believe it's also, if I'm not mistaken, Cinco de Mayo. All right. Be good to yourselves this weekend. Hunker, hug, and haven. I love you. See you next week.
Did you hear about the old maid chasing the man around the church? She caught him by the organ.
That's awesome. That was awesome. Hold on. Talk about technology.
Is this part of the show?
Hopefully not.
I thought this was like a non sequitur break.
No.